Hi everybody. I am going to be talking about my research paper. I'm going to be doing my research on In Praise of Limestone and a few other poems like Lullaby. I'll be touching on a bit of Lullaby too, but I'll mostly be focusing on In Praise of Limestone. And I'm going to also talking about how Auden uses how he incorporates his Christian beliefs, his religious beliefs in his writing, and how that affects the theme of In Praise of Limestone. So first of all, I'm going to be giving a brief history on not a brief history, a little bit of background on Odin's Christian history. So Odin he grew up in a Christian home, as we all know. His mom was Catholic and his dad was he grew up in an Anglo Catholic Catholic household, and he practiced Christianity in his early years, and then he gave it up later in life to focus on his writing. But then later on in life, around the 1940s, thereabouts, he started practicing Christianity again and took it seriously. And that was when he also started to make his beliefs the main focus of his writings, his poems, his essays, and all of that. And so, Anthony Hecht writes in one article, in an article on W.H. Audin's In Praise of Limestone, he explains that In Praise of Limestone combines rather curiously and rather like Michelangelo's famous round painting of the Holy Family, with young male nude athletes lounging around in the background, a serious religious concern indicated at the very least by references to the blessed and the life to come, with a particularly worldly sensuality, and in this resembles a good deal of Italian Baroque and Mannerist art. Both that art and this poem envision an anti-puritanical ideal, and the art was part of the deliberate achievement of the Counter-Reformation. It had been the reformers, of course, who so violently divided pleasure from piety, those statues and the buildings of Brahmans and Brahmini. We have modifications of matter into innocent athletes and gesticulating fountains made solely for pleasure of. I think is so this quote here explains how Odin incorporates his religious beliefs and sexuality and love in Praise of Limestone, and how it relates to the theme of human personality, the imperfections of human personality, and fresh imperfections of love, which is the main theme of In Praise of Limestone. Odin is popular for using different perspectives in his poem to tell a kind of truth. In the poem, he uses different perspectives to explain kind of religious experience. That's he uses mother nature, love, and God, and these themes intertwine and are central to In Praise of Limestone. He incorporates these different perspectives from nature to religion to show how God's love is different from human love, and also human personality, but more of human love, which I'll mostly be talking about. He uses Mother Nature as a symbol to describe the limits of human love, unlike that of God's love. Also, on religion, religion was a kind of refuge for Odin. It helped him make sense of parts of the world he could not explain. Odin was a wide reader. He read a lot. He knew about a lot of things, and he could talk about a lot of topics. But most of the things happening at that time when In Praise of Limestone was written, that's Second World War was just about ending, and he couldn't explain like some of the human behaviors that led to that kind of thing happening. So to him, really, Christianity was a way of explaining human behavior and in ways that humans could not understand, basically. So to Odin, religion was a kind of reform to change the world. His thoughts on religion was take the verse in the Bible, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. He took it literally, and that was also why we can see how it incorporates sexual love, erotic love. It's also a kind of brotherly love in Praise of Limestone. So in the essay The Protestant Mystics, Auden gives a perspective on how different visions the vision of Dame kind, also known as Mother Nature, vision of agape and eros love, and vision of God, how they can all lead to a religious experience. When talking about Mother Nature, which I'll mostly focusing on, he says the basic experience is an overwhelming conviction that the objects confronting him have a numinous significance and importance, that the existence of everything he is aware of is holy, and the basic emotion is one of innocent joy, though this joy can include, of course, irrelevant dread. In a normal state, we value objects either for their immediate aesthetic pleasure they give our senses. In the vision of Dame kind, such distinctions between the beautiful and the ugly, the serviceable and the unserviceable vanish. So long as the self is noted for its attention, it's noted for its attention, it's completely absorbed in what it contemplates. This is a kind of sneak peek as to the kinds of thoughts Auden had when he was describing the landscape. So he saw the landscape, the limestone. It was rough, like the description where he described it, and then it makes the reader consider the theological metaphors which can be found in the poem, and how it explains the theme of human personality and human love, which can also be found in the poem. And in another article, The Quest for Auden, writer Austin Warren states that when describing Auden's religious views, his religious position was, as it often is with mature men, partly disillusionment with schemes for reforming the world, partly the need for the largest and the best possible theoretical superstructure for writing about good and evil. One can assume with this view in mind that Auden uses In Praise of Limestone to describe how the imperfections of the world, which is a backward and dilapidated province as he describes in the poem, how it is a kind of criticism to how lacking it is, even with the beauty. The way he describes the limestone in the first half of the poem, even with all of that beauty, it's still lacking and backward and dilapidated compared to as opposed to Eden, which considers at the end of the poem. So when others take on love, agape and erotic love, which are also themes found in the poem, loving was his lifelong theme was love, and he had an early obsession with fraud in his early days. It explains the metaphor of the murder, which you can find in the first verse of the poem, and this references the Oedipus complex in Freudian theory, and explains love in a psychological perspective Auden could only appreciate at the time in his earlier days, when Auden quoted when he claimed all homosexual acts are acts of envy. So Freud's theory on sexuality was mostly heterosexual. This one majorly heterosexual, but so that theory influenced what Auden thought about sexuality and love during his early days, which is also incorporated in parts of In Praise of Limestone. In the hidden lore, Anthony Hertz claims that the landscape in the poem is inconstant, and that its very erosion is a sign of our inconstancy. That the inconstance can also be related to homosexuals, which shows Auden's sexuality, and it shows that humans express love in a selfish manner because it is not divine. When Auden says "we the inconstant ones," he describes how inconstant humans are, regardless of your sexuality, are when it comes to love. In the poem Lullaby, Auden describes a love that is beautiful, but also one that comes with a sense of future betrayal and loss. In the first line of the poem, when he writes, "Lay your sleeping head, my love, human on my faithless arm," he describes a love that is selfish because it is mortal, and this mortality comes with timing, and it is this timing that makes the love fleeting. It's not permanent. Auden embraces both erotic and agape love, like I said earlier, and that's also can majorly found in the poem. And And Auden combining these two kinds of love was same as God's love. But towards the last verse of In Praise of Limestone, he introduces the idea of regret, to state that it might not be so, that erotic and agape love might not be the same. And the landscape, well, the landscape does not give the same satisfaction as paradise in the Bible, Eden, because it is fallen and full of imperfections, and it is unlike God's love, which is unconditional and eternal. So my research paper will explore the connections between Auden's Christian beliefs and his idea of circular love, which incorporates the idea of erotic and agape love, the way Auden Auden believed it to be. And also I relate it to the theme of duality and doubleness, the theme of duality in human personality, which can also be found in Praise of Limestone, and also some parts of Lullaby, which I'll also be talking about too in my paper. And that's all I have for my presentation. Thank you.